Hello, hello! How are you? Good evening. Is everyone clapping? I can hear everyone outside now clapping. But if you're not and you're here, well, welcome. So, we're going to get started with our lessons of this week, okay? So, as you can see, today we are on the next lesson plan, which is emphasis and nominalization. Today we're going to focus on the emphasis side of it, and then nominalization will be what we do in the next video, okay, tomorrow. So, as you can see, this is the teaching plan, the lesson plan that we would typically follow in the academy. Today we're going to focus on going through the aspects of emphasis. Okie dokie? So, I need you to pay close attention because, as always, I'm going to ask you for a task which you can upload to Google Classroom so that we can listen to you practicing your speaking. Okay, so I'm going to give you 3 or 4 sentences at the end of the video which I want you to emphasize. Okay, we're going to use these different aspects of emphasis in those sentences using the word that I give you. So it will be a sentence and then a word that you must use to create that emphasis, okay? Exactly the same as in part 4 of your reading and use of English exam. Okie dokie? So, we're going to get started if you are ready. Hello, hello. Okay, so, how is this? Can you see okay? Yes? No? Maybe so? Wrong way. Ooh, wrong way. Camera's the other way. Okay, there we go. So, as you can see, today we are talking about emphasis and how to add that kind of like strong sense to what we're saying. This is important for like for your like speaking and writing abilities to like show that you have like a strong opinion or to make a suggestion, but something that you feel quite like intense about is very common to use emphasis just to like show that you can use different aspects of the language that give it a bit more kind of C1 level. Okay? Emphasis is not something that you typically use at B1, B2. So in an exam, if you use these kind of elements of emphasis, it does kind of bring up that level demonstration. So you're showing that you can use the level of speaking English a bit more. Okie dokie. So there are lots of different ways to emphasize. First, we can go like this. And that could be emphasis. However, please don't do that in the exam. I don't think Cambridge would take that really well. But there's other linguistical ways of demonstrating emphasis, which is what we're going to focus on. Not on being crazy like this, okay? Okay? Are we calm? Are we ready? Yes? Okay. I need to calm down. Okay. So, let's just get to it. Let's get started. So, one of our ways of using emphasis, a way to kind of emphasize something. This one you should know already. I'm going to begin with the easy one and then slowly, progressively get a bit more difficult. But when you want to emphasize the object over the subject, so the thing is more important than who is doing it. The thing is more important than the action is more important than the person. The object is more important than the person. We typically use yes, correct, very good. The passive voice, okay? So you can use the passive voice as one of your ways of emphasizing, okay? With the passive voice, typically, as I said, the object gains more importance than the subject. So you can use the passive voice to emphasize that this is important. The object is important, not the subject, okay? So for example, reports, student report or business reports are expected by the end of the week. Okay, this is a bit more, you're giving importance to the reports rather than the person that is handing in the reports. I don't care who does the report, I just care that the report is done. Okay, so reports are expected by the end of the week. Okay, pretty simple. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through the passive voice because I'm pretty sure that you are familiar with it already. I'm just going to open up the chat in case you're speaking to me, in case you're saying hello. You're not, that's great. I have no friends. Okay. But hello. Anyway, so I can't see the chat on the computer screen. So if you see me checking my phone, I'm just checking to see if you have any doubts, any questions. Please feel free to type them and ask me anything if you don't understand or if you want more examples or anything like that. Talk to me in the chat, okay? Because that's why I was checking my phone, so you know. So, hello, Gianella. Thank you for saying hi. Hi, Miguel. How are you? Is everyone okay? Okay. So let's move on. I imagine the passive voice is quite clear. Also, we're going to do a video in a bit more detail with the passive voice, I believe. Okay. Another thing that is really important for emphasis is inversion. Okay? What does this mean? So for example, I said no, that's the opposite of what I want to say. I didn't say you couldn't come. Okay? This is not inversion, this is just a regular sentence. So I didn't say you couldn't come. This is a normal sentence. There's a way of inverting the word order to kind of emphasize it. So typically what we do with inversion is that we place a prepositional phrase. Okay, so it normally goes with a prepositional phrase. This is a clause that is introduced by a preposition, logically, prepositional phrase. Or another kind of expression kind of similar to that. As in, I'll give you a couple of examples, okay? So, for example, at no time, okay? At no time would be a prepositional phrase, which is basically like a phrase saying, it's like saying never, right? The adverb of frequency, but it's introduced by a preposition, okay? So this is a prepositional phrase. So at no time, okay? So for example, you could change this sentence by using at no time and then inverting the word order, okay? So I will show you, demonstrate. Are you ready for magic? You would say at no time did I say you couldn't come. Okay, these two sentences would be exactly the same in meaning. I didn't say you couldn't come. At no time did I say you couldn't come. The difference here is that obviously the negative of didn't is indicated in the no, so therefore you do not have didn't in this sentence, okay? So at no time would be the prepositional phrase that introduces this inversion, and then you have the auxiliary and then the subject and then the verb, okay? So kind of like when you're making a question and you invert the order of auxiliary and verb and subject. But here it is not a question, right? It's just emphasis. It's inversion within it, okay? So at no time did I say you couldn't come would be an example. You can also use other, what is it called? Adverbs of frequency to kind of express this kind of thing, like never, seldom, always, hardly, okay? So for example, another example would be hardly. I'm going to go directly into the inversion here, okay? Hardly had I arrived. Hardly had I arrived when he started complaining. Okay? you could say this in like a normal way. I had hardly arrived, so it's like I had just arrived when he started complaining. Or you can put the adverb at the beginning, and that kind of introduces the inversion. So hardly had I arrived, and it gives it a lot of emphasis. If you say, I had just arrived when he started complaining, the meaning is not so strong as if you were saying, hardly had I arrived. It's like, the first second I get there, immediately, he's complaining. Okay, so it's like, hardly had I arrived when he started complaining. Okay? Or little did I understand what was happening. Okay? So it's like, I didn't really understand what was happening. Or you can emphasize it by saying, little did I understand. So there, it's important that you invert the order of the subject on the auxiliary verb. Okie dokie? Is inversion clear? Just gonna check the chat. Sorry, I know this is a bit annoying. Oh, now my internet's not loading. It's loading. I will roll off the board while I wait. Oh, hi Alejandro, hi Conchu, thanks for joining. Okay? Fantastic. So, the next point that we're going to go into is expressing annoyance. Okay? Expressing annoyance. Oh, so annoyed. Pissed off. The phrasal verb is a bit more colloquial. Typically, to express annoyance, to say that you're annoyed and you're just like, oh, it's so irritating. You use words such as always, forever, kind of like those words that indicate the kind of routine of something. So typically with routines, as you know, we use like the present simple form. But when we are using these kind of words that indicate routine with the present continuous form, that's when it kind of creates that really like irritability kind of sense to the sentence. So for example, Martha is always getting into trouble. Okay, here, typically, always would be the adverb of frequency that we use with routines. I do it on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday, at 5, at 6, at 7, at 8. That kind of meaning of always. So it's not typically used with the present continuous form. However, here, if you say Martha is always getting into trouble, you're giving like a continuous, you're using the continuous form. So that's something that's in the moment, but by saying it's always in the moment, you're kind of emphasizing that as a routine, she gets in trouble a lot. It gives it that kind of more strong emphasis, obviously. It gives it that strong meaning to the present continuous form. So you can use, this is typically used forgot what I was going to say. With the present continuous and the past continuous. Present continuous and past continuous. Okay, you use these kind of adverbs with these forms to express a routine rather than an action occurring at a particular moment, but with that emphasis. Okay? So like Peter is forever asking difficult questions. Okay, Peter always asks difficult questions. But by using the continuous form, you're emphasizing Peter is always asking or is forever asking difficult questions. Or George was always being reprimanded by his teachers. So the teachers reprimanded George all the time. So you use that continuous form for emphasis. So George was always being reprimanded by his teacher. Okay? Now, this you should be familiar with already because you did an entire video or half a video on this topic with Dan. Okay? You remember? When you did the environment, you talked about cleft sentences. Cleft sentences. Okay? Cleft sentences, you had to, so I keep going off the screen. Bye! I'm back. Bye! Oh, it's 8 o'clock, it's Monday, I'm sorry. Forgot what I was talking about. Cleft sentences. Yes, exactly. That's C1. It's very easy to get distracted. So we had cleft sentences with it, and then we had cleft sentences with what? This is often used in the cleft sentences with it are often used to emphasize a specific subject or object. And then the introductory clause always needs to be followed by a relative pronoun. Okay, a lot of grammar. So for example, you can say, I received the promotion. I received the promotion. Okay? I did it. Yay! Got promoted. Hard work and dedication pays off. So this would just be like a regular sentence, right? And there's a way to emphasize this using it as the subject, okay? Obviously, it would begin with it. Then if this is in the past, you use was to be in the past, so it was, and then you put the original subject. So it was I. And now comes what I was saying before. After this, we need the relative pronoun. So it was I who, and then the second part of the sentence. Okay, so it was I who received the promotion. Here, it sounds a bit more powerful, right? And you're just like, oh, yes, it was me. It was me in time, it was I, okay? It was I who received the promotion. Instead of I received the promotion, it was I who received the promotion. Another example without a person would be the awful weather drives him crazy. The awful weather drives him crazy. Okay? Again, you would start it with it. Then here, drives him crazy, that's present, so you would say it is. And then we have the subject, so it is the awful weather. Then we need the relative pronoun that I was talking about. Okay, so in this case, because the awful weather is a thing, you would say that or which. I prefer to use that because I use that a lot more than I use which. That drives him crazy. Okay? It is the awful weather that drives him crazy. Again, these sentences have the same meaning. Okay? It's just to give a bit more of that C1 intensity to your speaking and to your writing skills. So if you use one of these aspects in your writing exams especially, to give it that kind of emphasis, it really shows the examiners really evaluate this and take this into consideration and give you higher marks because it's kind of demonstrating that you can do more elaborate things with the language that you know. Okay? Hi. Okay, let me check I'm just going to check it after every 2 things. See if you're saying anything. Oh, Raquel. Even if you write was, the verb is in past tense. Yes, because this action finished in the past. Okay? It was I. If you say it was I who receives the promotion, you say it was I, you're talking about the past. So you're saying I got this. But then if you say I who receives the promotion, then you're talking about now. So there would be an inconsistency between your tenses. Okay? So it was I who received. Both of them happened in the past. This was is not adding any meaning to your sentence. Okay? this is an empty word, essentially, because the important verb is listening. Okay? Therefore, it has to coincide with the other verb in the same tense to make sure that it is complete. Okay? Fantastic. Ooh. We have two more. Amazing, amazing. Okay, next one is Cleft Sentences using what. Okay, before it was with it, now it is with what. So here is also used to emphasize the subject or the object, a specific subject or object. So typically the verb, no, not the verb, what is not the verb? What is used as the subject of the sentence and is followed by the verb to be. Okay? So, for example, we need long, good, that English, that was adjectives. A good long shower. Okay? In this case, you start the sentence with what? So what, and then you leave this the same. Okay, this stays the same. So what we need, and then here is where you add the verb to be. So what we need is, and then the rest of the sentence, a good long shower. Okay, what we need is a good long shower. So all you're adding is this and this. But by adding these two words, you are automatically demonstrating a higher level. Okay. And for example, he thinks I don't know how to make that not fantastic. So my example was going to be what he thinks isn't necessarily true. Okay, here as well. So that's why I put it in. He thinks things that aren't true. Okay. Here you have what, and then he thinks, and then always the verb to be. Okay. This is the only thing that's kind of important. If you use what as the emphatic subject, then you always need to have the verb to be after the other verb. Okay, dokie. That's pretty much it for cleft sentences with what. And we have one more. Okay, gonna rub this out. So, your entire life, you are taught in English that the auxiliary verb, we don't use it in the positive form. We use it in the negative form. So, for example, John didn't speak to Mary, okay? Or in the question form, did John speak to Mary? Typically, in the positive form, we just say, John spoke to Mary. Okay? That's A1, A2 English. But for emphasis, that auxiliary verb in the positive form does actually exist. So for example, you could say, John spoke to Mary, and like that. Oh, I didn't write what the name of this is. Whoops. This is auxiliary Okay, you can use the auxiliary do and did to emphasize your sentences. So as I was saying, John spoke to Mary would be a regular sentence, present simple, A2 English, not present simple, past simple. But to make this emphatic, you could add the auxiliary. So for example, if I say to you, John didn't speak to Mary, and you could say, no, that's not true. John did speak to Mary. Okay? So you would change this and make it John did speak to Mary. Here, by adding the auxiliary, and then obviously leaving it in the bare infinitive form, by adding the auxiliary, you are emphasizing that I 100% know that John spoke to Mary. And you can take my word because I know, okay? So you're not just saying John spoke to Mary. You're saying John did speak to Mary. It's that emphasis, okay? As always, that's everything that we do. Typically, this is used to express the contrary idea of what somebody else is saying. Typically, when you want to express the opposite of what a person believes. So if a person thinks that John didn't speak to Mary, and I know for a fact that they did, then you could use this. Okay, so it's to express that kind of contrary belief, opposite side. So for example, I do believe you should wash your hands to stop the spread of the virus. Okay, maybe I'm talking to someone and they think, this virus, it's all just a conspiracy from the government. I don't think any of it's true. I don't need to wash my hands, blah, 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 blah. And I'd be like, no. I do believe you should wash your hands, okay? That I do believe is to use, again, you're using the auxiliary. This is in the present form, but you're using the auxiliary to kind of emphasize that, yes, okay, you're emphasizing the opposite idea of what the other person is. Okay? Hopefully that is clear. I'm just going to check the chat to see if there are any doubts. One more time. Okay, thanks. You're very welcome, Raquel. Okay, in which case, if there aren't any doubts, I'm going to move on to your homework. Yay! Okay, so this is your video task. I want you to upload video speaking so I can listen to your amazing English at level C1. I'm going to give you 4 different sentences and a word to convert those sentences into emphatic. Okay, so for example, we just need 5 minutes to fix it. I want you to use the word all. Okay. Sentence number 2. I'm not questioning his dedication. And the word I want you to use is not. Okay. Obviously, don't leave it the same. You have to make it emphatic. Okay. These men are totally ruthless. Okay, use the word what. And we are taking the open with us and use the word really. Okay, this is your video task. I'm going to type it on Google Classroom anyway, where you can upload your videos. So you can look at it here, or you can look at it on the Google Classroom. And that would be all for today. I hope you have learned how to be emphatic! Okay? So, as I was saying, this is important for you to use when it comes to your speaking and your writing exam to demonstrate that you do have that kind of higher level of English. Okie dokie? I hope you have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful day. Hope you enjoyed this class, and I will see you again tomorrow morning. Okie dokie?